Welcome to the Gaming's Greatest Generation podcast, where we discuss news, reviews, and all things video games with your hosts, the OG Leo Hawley, the overachiever Mark Lombardi, and Mr. Contradiction himself, Matt Harms. Stay tuned for ways to connect with the G3 community, contribute to the show, or tell us about your greatest gaming experiences. Now, let's get to the show.
Greetings, gamers, and welcome to another episode of the G3 Podcast. Here with you this evening for episode 27 is myself, known as Ice, on all things gaming and social media, and I am joined by the whole crew. So starting off, the man, the myth, the legend, the one who was somewhat held captive last night, Mr. Mark, aka Snipe90. Mark, why don't you tell us what happened last night before we get on with the rest of the show?
Long story short, my house was a home base for the local police. With a standoff with my neighbor, so I might see it on the news. We'll see.
Yeah, kind of interesting thing. We were talking about it offline quite a bit. We actually postponed the recording an evening to go ahead and let the law do its thing, so we could get the dynamic trio here. And rounding out the dynamic trio, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Spray and Pray himself. Mow them down. What's going on, Matt? What's going on?
Not too much. Glad I wasn't involved in the festivities over at Mark's house last night. Glad that we got all reconvene this evening so we could do it together.
Excellent, of course. So just doing the housekeeping up front, this is the Gaming's Greatest Generation podcast. We are available on all your favorite audio streaming platforms, as well as here on YouTube if you're watching the video podcast version. So please, give us a shout out, whether it's on our Discord or in the comment section. Subscribe if you feel so inclined and you want to see some more of this great juicy gaming content where the talking heads go ahead and discuss the latest and greatest in gaming news. And with that, we'll get on with the show. So in true G3 fashion, we're going to start off with news from the net. We'll go with the bad first and kind of move on with the rest of the show, get into the good news. So the bad news, this piece coming out of, a number of sources, but IGN is our source for this one, where Nintendo has decided they are going to go ahead and discontinue the 3DS and the Wii U eShops in 2023, with March 2023 being the target date. It's going to be a phased out approach. Starting in May 23rd, you'll no longer be able to add funds to credit cards for purchases on those storefronts. August 29th of 2022, you'll no longer be able to use the eShop card and just recharge funds onto that. And then in late March of 2023, next year, of course, you won't be able to make any more purchases. You will, however, be able to re-download games that you have previously purchased. This unfortunately goes ahead and shuts off the availability for new purchases of some 1,799 titles. That's a lot of games. But you do still have the opportunity, as I said, to go ahead and re-download the stuff that you had previously purchased. And Nintendo was kind enough in their FAQ sites to basically point in the direction of Nintendo Switch Online, saying, and this is their remarks, "We think this is an effective way to make classic content easily available to a broad range of players. Within these libraries, new and longtime players can not only find games they remember or have heard about, but other fun games they might not have thought to see out otherwise." So a lot of interesting feedback going on there. This is kind of reminiscent of when PlayStation went ahead and shut down their PS3 and the Vita stores online in 2021. The interesting thing was there was a little bit of backlash from the fan base, and Sony kind of reversed that decision. So will Nintendo do the same? Probably not, but we're going to toss it off to the Nintendo man himself, Mark. Mark, what do you think about this decision? What do you think about Nintendo going ahead and shutting down some legacy console eShops?
End of an era. Me personally got the Wii U at launch. I've had multiple 3DS versions throughout the years. I think it's more the lines of just slowly getting stuff to the Switch platform, along with people moving on to emulators for everything. So, they're not seeing the population on the eShop as they were years ago. So, just cutting the cord and bygones be bygones, I guess.
Yeah, I know me for one, I'm a little upset by the decision in the sense of I'm like, okay, cool, great. You want to point us in the direction of the Nintendo Switch Online store. However, or the subscription rather. However, guess what? Not all of these 1,799 games are available on that platform. Probably nowhere near even 100 right now are available on that platform. So I can understand where people are kind of upset about this. And again, I can see the frustration on both sides where, as you mentioned, people are going ahead and starting to use more emulation software to tap into this nostalgia and get to enjoy some of these prior Nintendo games, even if Nintendo wants to go ahead and shut certain folks down, like Doug Bowser, who went ahead, or sorry, Gary Bowser, right? Gary Bowser, yeah, who went ahead and had basically a whole emulation sales business and got slapped with several $1,000s of fines as well as a jail time as recently, thanks to the U.S. court system. Matt, so we kind of had an attempt at this last night, but then obviously this is a fresh recording. So what takes you got here on the Nintendo, the older eShops?
No, I mean, I would have to say that I still, maintain that, I think the most likely course of action there is to, as Mark alluded to there in his statement, you're basically directing people to, get on in on the Switch here. We're trying to move those units. So yeah, that seems to me to be the most likely function here of the move. As mentioned previously when we were discussing this before, though, there is at least some potential that even if not expressed, maybe it's similar concerns or whatever with Sony, where they were kind of cutting those stores off because they weren't really being maintained, as marketplaces, and they were vulnerable potentially. So they say, to attack, where maybe your information gets stolen or something. Like that's why they were moving to just allowing you to, put points into like a wallet or whatever that you then use for a purchase or whatever, rather than have you use like, your direct card info or something. So could be a couple of different factors, but yeah, ultimately it's, come on, people, get out there and buy that Switch.
And to bring that back around actually to Mark. So Mark, I mean the Switch came out in March of 2018, and the fact Nintendo's kind of pointing everybody in the direction of Nintendo Switch Online, the subscription service, like, do you think that we're going to see a Switch 2 or at least something with some type of backward compatibility with the Nintendo Switch Online purchases piecemeal as well as the Switch Online store? Because it kind of seems like that. Why would the company go ahead and point you in this direction if they're only going to have a new console in the next year or two, right?
Yeah, I think they're moving more towards, as Sony and Microsoft, the whole subscription services ordeal. They're like, hey, they're making these money on, these titles every month. It's guaranteed money. So like, as we saw a month or two ago, they added all the N64 stuff. So I can see him putting the Game Boy Color titles, the Game Gear stuff, like, and why not just up the price to $15 extra? You can have access to X amount of titles, and 3 months from now you can another $15 and you can have these titles. So I mean it's definitely something I can see them doing.
Yeah, it makes sense in that regard that they don't. We were talking about it again last night in our filed up our technical difficulty infused pre-recording that we did. But it definitely leaves opportunity when the new Nintendo Switch Online, including N64 and Sega Genesis titles, caps out at, I believe it's $50 a year now, right? Where you look at some of these other subscription services, whether it be Game Pass or Sony's PlayStation Now, which may be on its way out the door in favor of this Project Spartacus, there's quite a bit of room to reach a newer ceiling, as you mentioned, like adding on different things. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to be up for renewal next month, I believe, and I'll probably go ahead and hop on board because I would love to play some of those older titles. But that's it. Nintendo can't get any more money out of me unless they introduce Virtual
Sure.
Boy. Bring the Virtual Boy. Nobody ever played the Virtual Boy. Anyways, cool. So that was the bad. Moving on with the good. If you haven't heard, once again, living under a gaming rock or something to that effect, yesterday now, as we record this on the 19th of February, yesterday was the official release date for Horizon Forbidden West on PlayStation consoles. And so I've heard nothing but great reviews of it. It seems to be a stellar looking game. By looking at Metacritic, which is again not the end all be all, but what we like to kind of use on the show, it's got an 88 Metascore as out of 106 critic reviews and a 7.5 user score. So I've heard a lot of great things, and as I mentioned, kind of offline with you guys in chat, I was very close to going ahead and pre-ordering this game. But that being said, I mean, just me looking at my backlog and things that I got to play that I want to wrap up before undertaking a new challenge, I'll probably end up, by the time I do want to go ahead and get ready to play this game, it'll most likely be on sale. So I may not be getting it first round here. Matt, is this a PlayStation console seller for you?
Probably not. Yeah, I'm not sure if that franchise necessarily speaks to me in quite the same way. Oh, great. Can you hear me okay? All right. Okay. In any case, yeah, I can't say that the game really speaks to me in a huge way. It is very pretty and everything. But for me, it looks a little too Ubisoft for my preference, if I'm being honest, with the open world and whatever. So yeah, no, I'm sure that it's a fun game. Not necessarily a system seller for me specifically, but that's just me.
Okay.
I don't know. But yeah, I'm sure it's probably going to get some great scores. Everybody seemed to really be impressed with the last one. I can't imagine that they're going to try and come in under the target of that they established with the last game. So yeah.
Yeah, they definitely set a high benchmark with the last game, and now this one. I don't know if I'll co-sign on the Ubisoft, comparisons there. However, a lot of stuff that's coming out with this game is saying if you pursue just the story, you're looking at somewhere around 20 to 25 hours. If you start doing more of the side quests, or at least the more robust ones, you're looking somewhere more in the range of like a 60-hour, 50 to 60-hour gameplay experience. And then if you want to 100% platinum, do the whole nine, you're looking at probably somewhere upwards of 100 hours, which I was pretty impressed by when I saw that number. Mark, you're already fiending to get your hands on a PS5. Does this go ahead and make it all the more? Does this wet your beak, so to speak?
Yeah. Yeah, it's people like Matt. That's why it's got a 7.6 user score. But
Sorry.
no, I mean, from what I've seen, it's a pretty game. The first one was pretty. Of course, I haven't had a chance to play the new one, but I've been waiting for a sequel for a long time. Not sure I'm gonna jump right on it, trying to get a console and all that stuff. As I just got this guy back here recently, but um, I mean, it's one of those things I'll just pick up when I can, or wait for Epic to pick it up. So
Yeah, and you never know, right? Like we're still waiting to see. I think speculation is the announcement was early 2022 is when we were going to see something officially announced about PlayStation's Project Spartacus, and they talked about PS5 games in there. Do I think they're going to go ahead and have Horizon Forbidden West, their brand new, kind of flagship title, put into that service? Probably not. Maybe some type of trial of that, but we'll see. Only time will tell. But yeah, if you don't have your opportunity to get a console just yet, unfortunately, you can go ahead and experience, as Mark alluded to, the original on either PS4 or on Steam and Epic Game Store on PC. So we'll see how long it takes for Horizon Forbidden West to follow suit and come to PC. Moving right along to our next story here. So on the Call of Duty blog, they went ahead and the folks at Activision Blizzard identified, as we probably could have suspected, that this year's mainline entry is going to actually be the sequel to 2019's Call of Duty Modern Warfare remake. And I say that kind of tentatively because over the years we've seen quite a few remakes, remastered of the Modern Warfare franchise. The other big piece within that blog post that kind of stood out to me was when they're talking about the future stuff. They also mentioned that there's going to be a new Warzone experience, as they call it, designed from the ground up with or in tandem with this new Call of Duty game, including a new engine. So Matt, you had some remarks basically on the existing Warzone, and I know we played through the 2019 remake of Call of Duty Modern Warfare. What do you think? Is this Good news, bad news. Activision out the door. They're going downhill. Just
Well, I mean, oh god, yeah, I don't know. I don't think that there's anything more downhill about this than anything prior. But I mean, the new engine, I haven't seen it, but a new engine is usually good. Progress in those kind of areas is always a good thing. What I was saying was that uh, the current engine that Warzone's running on, that Modern Warfare is running on, like that is still pretty smooth. Obviously, when we're playing, on Xbox One, series consoles or whatever generation consoles, they're still going to maybe have an issue for delivering everything flawlessly at all times. I guess depending on just all what's going on, especially in Warzone where you have so many people, and you're straining CPU at that point as well. But yeah, it runs well with new current hardware and everything else. It'll be interesting to see what they, I guess, add in. Can't imagine that they're going to be trying to run ray tracing like in Warzone and stuff like that. But who knows? Maybe that'd be really cool.
cool. Yeah, no, I agree. Definitely something new and creative like ray tracing. I think would be very interesting for a multiplayer title, especially something as grandiose as a Warzone. Mark, you got any thoughts on this before we move on to the next thing?
Not too much. I'm pretty lost in the whole Call of Duty space. I haven't played since the Modern Warfare. Haven't played the Vanguard. I'm not sure what the hell they're doing these days. So,
Okay, checks.
yeah.
And so that kind of leads us into our next story, which basically people are asking the same question: What the hell are you guys doing these days? Ubisoft had a investors call this past week, and in said call, they went ahead and this sourcing coming out of VGC, but they identified, hey, by the way, Skull and Bones, that title you remember us showing at E3 a couple of years ago, it still exists. And in fact, they went ahead and expounded on that to say that it is a multiplayer first focus title. So if you recall, Skull and Bones, maybe I'll get it Gucci enough on the video that we can go ahead and play a trailer or something that they showcased about this game. But this was basically the big adult brother, if you will, to Sea of Thieves, because Sea of Thieves was kind of announced and came out around the same time. But this was essentially Ubisoft's way of taking all the sea traversal and warfare and everything that they had in Assassin's Creed Black Flag and made it its own whole game. Thankfully, it did seem pretty optimistic and everything. But yeah, it's just been in production hell, if you will. It was first shown off in 2018, and then we haven't really heard a whole lot about it since. And rounding out that investor call, so this one sourcing out of Yahoo Finance, it was pretty interesting because a analyst had the gall to go ahead and ask Ubisoft pretty upfront, "Hey, why haven't you guys been bought yet? You have all this acquisition talk going around in the air. You guys have all these great hit or miss, maybe on the gamer reception side, or maybe we're starting to feel a little repetition, a la Matt's comment when we're talking about, the Assassin's Creed open world style of franchise. But so it was very much asked. Let me see if I have this. Oh man, it's a lot of back and forth inquiries here. But long and short of it is, yeah, you had the CFO and what's the CFO's name? Sorry, Frédéric Duguet, and then you had the CEO of Ubisoft, Yves Guillemot, who was on this call, and they both kind of chimed in and basically said, in this hypothetical world, if we were made an offer, we can't comment on it, but in a hypothetical world, and they kind of led into reinforcing that they have really great IPs. So with that, let me turn over the mic finally. So when we're talking about Skull and Bones still existing as a multiplayer first title due out who knows when, and then the idea or thought or kind of coyness about Ubisoft regarding being offered any type of acquisition talk. Mark, what are you thinking about this? You think that Skull and Bones should still exist? Do you think it should come out preferably sometime soon? And what about Ubisoft getting acquired?
I remember when it released it, the trailer or whatever, and I was like, oh, this looks cool. It's like Sea of Thieves, but like more PvP action. About my style. Like, all right, let's do it. And then it's like waiting, and then I actually forgot about it till just now. so, so I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that game. But I mean, I'll still probably get it if it comes out. As far as Ubisoft getting bought, I don't think big wigs are gonna hop on there, that train right now with all their fluff of their games and all that nonsense. So all the backlash they're getting from people. So I don't think it's the right time for someone to acquire them.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, Ubisoft definitely has. They got a lot of different studios, right? I think it's somewhere in the range of a dozen different studios, granted, different parts of the world, and they're all kind of named Ubisoft something, Ubisoft Montreal, Ubisoft Toronto, Ubisoft Singapore. They do have a lot of talent there, but I find it interesting when we look at kind of the past couple of years with Ubisoft. They too have had some of the, maybe not as grievous as we've seen with Activision Blizzard, but they've had some misconduct allegations and stuff going on in there. And we talked about it in a previous episode. I believe it was one just with Matt and I, where they went ahead and they let go of a bunch of people, and their new chief creative officer was, more or less another white guy, kind of indicative of a stagnation in the creativity going on over there at Ubisoft. Matt, what do you think? Skull and Bones? Is it creative genius? Is it creative trash? And should they just get acquired and get incorporated into something bigger and better?
So, as far as Skull and Bones goes, I mean, I'm not shocked that they haven't let it die because they, think that they're going to be able to do something with that. I'm not, really sure. I guess if I have a whole lot of hope for that one myself. Can't say I was surprised to hear that it was a multiplayer first title. That seemed like that was going to be pretty obviously the case. But yeah, I don't know. I'll be curious to see any kind of details or any kind of new footage, whenever they're able to bring something out with that. But something tells me that there's maybe some issues with the core principle or whatever and what they were trying to do with it, when I mean, it's just been nothing, for years on that. Insofar as Ubisoft being acquired, I can't say that it would necessarily be a wrong time to try and scoop them up. Um, I mean, let's look at Activision. You know what I mean? Microsoft's going to buy them at like the height of all their turmoil and everything. Like it's. I don't think that. I don't think that picking Ubisoft up right now would necessarily be the worst thing. But Ubisoft may not be interested. Or they may just want a chief premium, I guess, on the purchase that maybe nobody's been willing to accept yet as their asking price. But they've got quite a lot of IPs that they're working with. I mean, if Microsoft wanted to try and bring that under the bridge and add all that in, I know Leo's been hoping and praying for years now. But yeah, no, I don't know. We'll see. I can't imagine that somebody wouldn't have the interest in scooping them up, whether or not they would have the interest or if the other party would have the cash or whatever. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, and let's not forget, you mentioned Ubisoft and their IPs. A couple big ticket items to remember. Ubisoft is not a publicly traded company. It's actually privately owned by a particular family. I don't believe it's the Guimont family, but nonetheless, that would probably be one of those that is more in line with like, to relate it in that sense of a Bethesda acquisition where there's talk in the background, and then by the way, it's done. Like there's no need to go through what we're seeing Microsoft go through with the Activision Blizzard acquisition and having to go through the hoops with, the SEC, the FTC, all these different entities. And when you talk about the IP, you don't forget too. Yeah, they some of their existing IP may feel a little stagnant, but Ubisoft is also working on that new Avatar game, which who knows when that's going to come out. We still yet to get a date on Skull and Bones, but maybe we'll have better luck with release date for the Avatar game. But speaking of some new titles, or at least maybe revisiting some titles and calling it new, Platinum Games went ahead and in an interview that we're citing here with VGC has basically said they would actually be willing to go ahead and try their hand at making Scalebound once again. So Scalebound, if you remember, was one of the titles way back, pretty much around the unveiling of the Xbox One in 2013. It was supposed to be this grandiose thing. If I'm smart enough with the video, we might be able to get something playing here in the background. But it was kind of hipster, but at the same token, very fantasy like. You got this champion who kind of rides around on dragons. And I didn't quite get the story that was associated with it. But that being said, it definitely struck a chord because the newer president of Platinum Games, I'm going to mess his name up. Let me find it one more time to read it specifically here. Where did his name go? Vamp. Okay, I'll get his name in a second here. Unfortunately, I don't know why I can't find it. But he went ahead and appealed to pretty much Phil Spencer directly and mentioned this whole piece about how development can be pretty difficult at times, and you got to do what you got to do, and the creative vision was there, but yet there was some difference between the hardware and development. But so the CEO, gosh, I just had it. Anywho, his remarks went as far as to say, quote, development had progressed a fair way, and it seems pointless for Microsoft to just hold on to that and not to do anything with it, end quote. But then this was actually, I believe, the Scalebound creator, Hideki Kamiya, that said this. But then he said this in Japanese, but then he switched to English and said, Phil, let's do it together. So, basically straight up appealing to Phil Spencer. So that led to another kind of interesting piece. And this was, again, kind of in part, I guess, to what was said about Platinum Games had their own investor call. Sorry, stories, guys. Had their own investor call, and apparently it came out with all the talk of acquisitions. Some analysts basically said, hey, why don't we see as much consolidation in the Japanese sector of game development as we do over in the West? And the new CEO of Platinum Games, Atsushi Inaba, went as far as to say, quote, the most important thing for us is to have the freedom to make the games that we want to make. What I hear about the recent acquisitions, I don't think Microsoft is going to start micromanaging Activision to where they take away all their freedom. I don't think it's going to be a relationship like that, end quote. And so this was obviously kind of pointing, he was teed up on it, but it was pointing to obviously Microsoft's buyout of Activision Blizzard and a lot of fear that creativity is going to go down the hole, but signaling that Platinum Games would not be opposed to an acquisition if they were still allowed to have their creativity in developing the games that they want to make. So we'll swing it back around the opposite way here. Matt, what do you think about Scalebound? Is it worth going ahead and looking back at an IP that at this point is, damn near 10 years old from its unveiling? And then what about Platinum Games? Does it seem like a potential Japanese studio, something that at least insofar as Xbox has said that they'd like to acquire, or do you think that they'll get acquired by somebody the likes of Sony?
I mean, I think if, your terms and conditions are right and they're met or whatever, then yeah, I mean, anybody's got the potential to be acquired by anybody. But yeah, I definitely think that Microsoft would have the interest in picking them up. That would be a foothold, into that market that they have the desire to kind of, breach into. And that is actually a pretty respected developer over there with, the titles that they put out. So yeah, I don't know. I definitely think that would be a target, so to speak. But yeah, who knows what price that they would be asking for, and if Microsoft or somebody else would be willing. As far as Scalebound goes, I mean, I can't say that it's really any sort of like big news to suspect that there could be maybe an incompatibility with whatever they were trying to achieve based on what they had, presented with that game and the hardware of the Xbox One, when that initially was released. So yeah, if they had to walk away, unfortunately, and just sort of shelve it, until they would have something more capable to, kind of conform with the vision that they were trying to bring to life or bring to digital reality, whatever. Yeah, I mean, I thought it looked pretty cool. Obviously, pretty limited scope of what you actually see or know or anything. As you mentioned, you have no idea what the story is supposed to be, and yeah, beyond just basic explanation of kind of this is what is happening, I guess, right at this moment. Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of that, but I was intrigued enough. I would have checked it out. It kind of looked like I guess a Bayonetta type or like a Devil May Cry or something, but with a dragon or with dragons. All right, like it looked cool. So yeah.
So, Mark, let me swing it a different way here. You're talking Platinum Games, the makers of Vanquish and Astral Chain. Some interesting titles, particularly Astral Chain coming out on the Nintendo Switch. Scalebound, something that they should go ahead and re-engage in. And what about maybe even the Nintendo going ahead and picking up Platinum Games? Now they got Bayonetta 3 that's coming out Switch exclusive. What do we think about that?
Yeah, I agree with Matt, as well as I think maybe they're just trying to get Phil's pocket change to try and you know uh, finish off some of their titles and get a little piece of the pie, I guess. But I don't think Nintendo's pockets are that deep to buy them. I don't think they're in the market either. I mean, they're pretty dead set on their hardware at the moment, so I don't think they're gonna venture off too far in that neck of the woods with all that. But
Okay.
I mean, anything could go though.
Okay, bold statement. Bold statement. Nintendo doesn't have deep enough pockets coming from the maker of the console that is consistently the highest selling that we've seen for the past couple of years. All right, folks. Well, that pretty much rounds out our news segment. We do have one or two little things that we'll kind of talk about later on in the show, but we will get back to it right after these messages.
Want to contribute to the show? Maybe you want to try your chances at a question being aired? Give us a call at 702-690-9292 and you might find yourself so lucky.
And we're back. We're over here talking about feet in video games, kind of a weird combination. Anyways, so if you guys caught us on the last segment, we were talking about news from the net. So now we're kind of moving on into a kind of an interesting take, or at least something that we want to talk about here. We previously noted the IGN opinion piece where it talked about it's not about a console war, it's about a content war. And we're seeing that not only in the realm of this is why we can't have nice things. In the realm of a PlayStation versus Xbox, but we're seeing this in just the form of IPs, specifically when we look at things like Netflix being a premier, video streaming platform that it seems like the world over has access to, or at least is available in all these different regions. But you've got some really interesting gaming IPs that have come on over and been relatively successful, some of which in the form of Castlevania that came out in 2017, The Witcher, which has received great reception and is just getting ready to, I believe it got greenlit for a third season, but that originally came out in 2019. Arcane last year in 2021, which got really, at least as far as I'm concerned, I've heard resounding things, and I really liked what I saw of the show as well. And now they just got greenlit, and it's now available to air starting this weekend, is the Cuphead show. So a lot of different stuff going on there in the Netflix realm. And it's not just contained to Netflix. What we see is a lot of other opportunities spanning both into the television, but as well as the movie space. We've got Uncharted, which just came out, obviously a Sony IP, came out. Fortunately, unfortunately, I don't know how we can read into this one. According to Rotten Tomatoes, that one's got a 40% tomato meter rating, but an 89% audience score. And then we've got other stuff like the Halo trailer that's for the show, the dedicated show, live action, going to be coming out on Paramount Plus later this year. And there's also another announcement for yet again another Netflix show. This article coming out of Forbes talking about personally one of my favorite IPs of all time, Bioshock, getting its own television adaptation coming out to Netflix. So a lot of stuff going on here. Kind of open thoughts. Mark, what do you think? Like, are we seeing good strides here as opposed to, I don't know, like the Doom movie? Are we seeing gaming kind of get its day in the sun? What is it you're liking, not liking, and what do you want to see more of coming out with all these different properties?
Um, I like to see it. The Witcher. I've had a good time watching that. I haven't finished the second season yet. I watched Castlevania as well. I haven't got a chance to do Cuphead yet. But it's I find it a little funny. They casted Wayne Brady as the King Dice guy. I haven't heard from that guy, and I don't even know what else he was in recently. But they did cast was it True Valentino? He's also, if people don't know, he's in Psychonauts 2. I think he plays the character Chip, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I like to see the game world come to the at home big screen, I should say. In some places, people don't go to the movies as much as they do as pre-COVID. But yeah, I like to see it. Yeah.
So, Matt, you previously went ahead and you said to the group, I'm done. I finished everything there is on Netflix. Did you get to actually watch any of these, or, what do you think about more of these shows being adapted for the at-home big screen, as Mark put it?
I definitely don't recall saying that, but no, I mean, I've seen as of right now, like the first season of The Witcher, and that's about all I've really experienced of any of that particular content. Um, yeah, it's not like a terrible move, I guess, for all these studios to start trying to get involved in this or interested in this and trying to maybe bring some attention back into watching television again, or going and seeing films or whatever. Obviously video games have blown up and are continuing to do so, and yeah, they just want to make sure they're staying relevant for younger audiences. So yeah, they'll continue to do it. I'm hoping it's going to all be quality content. I guess time will tell. I think it's kind of interesting that there was a Cuphead thing, just period. But yeah, I guess I'll check it out just to see what they do with it. The game is at least certainly unique. Yeah, yeah. As far as Uncharted goes, the critical review of that, I'm sure, is not going to be overwhelmingly positive. That's not I guess necessarily what you're really looking for the gaming audience, or maybe the younger crowd who's going to go watch that just like for a fun flick or whatever. It doesn't necessarily have to be the most competent story or piece of filmmaking mastery or whatever. So yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't got to see Uncharted yet. I probably will. I'm not gonna lie. I've got a pretty. I'm fortunate enough that I have a good entertainment setup here in the house. So it's a little frustrating when they say things like, "Oh, only in theaters." I'm like, "All right, dude. So I'm gonna wait 2 to 3 months and just go ahead and buy the damn thing, or as soon as it comes out on a streaming service, I'll see it then because I'm not super motivated to go spend extra money. Whatever it is now, $30, $40 for a 2 hour sitting of a movie. I'd rather spend that on, I don't know, an interactive game that I can play dozens of hours in. But yeah, The Witcher, just like the books, I need to get into that. I have this fascination with wanting to soak in all the lore. But on the same token of lore, what we're seeing is they're kind of going a different direction from the lore with the Halo TV series. So it's not necessarily as cut and dry, sticking to the canon that we know of, Halo 1, 2, 3, 4, and then Master Chief, or Halo 5, not to forget that one. But it looks like a definitely different take, especially when we're looking at the live action factor, and maybe some of that CG influence. So, Matt, coming back around to you, what did you think when you saw that Halo trailer, and particularly Cortana, as we talked about offline?
Well, I mean, so I don't know, man. There was a lot there was a lot going on in the trailer, and I can't say I necessarily had like an overwhelmingly positive feeling coming away from it. But I guess if I can access it somehow, I'll at least check it out just to see what they're doing with it. Does look like they're covering stuff kind of, you know, pre-Halo games or whatever. So I don't know necessarily how against the lore some of the stuff is, beyond, you know, maybe some visual stuff. There was the human chick that they showed who's like apparently helping the Covenant, but I don't know, have they told this story yet? I haven't really read any of the books or anything, so like I don't know, maybe there was a human chick helping them out. um I will say that, yeah, I mean, Cortana, like, if you're gonna keep the voice and everything, just make her look, you know, just do a digital representation of her. Why? I'm not even sure what the hell they did with this. If this is like, it looks like a chick, but then they did something weird with her visually, but then it's still Jen Taylor's voice or whatever. It's just like, yeah, I don't know. Odd decision there from my perspective. And then Pablo Schreiber, I mean, he's gonna do the best he can. But he's still too short. You know what I mean? Like, he's a tall dude, I think, but he's not he's definitely not tall enough for the, you know, the Master Chief's stature or whatever, standing next to his fellow humans or whatever. So they're kind of missing it on that one. Kudos, I guess, for wanting to try and do more practical effects or whatever. But yeah, and then the Chevy Tahoe or whatever it is that snuck in there.
You gotta get some kind of, you know, product placement.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, as far as the story, I find it interesting that they're supposedly taking at least something of the Star Wars approach, where hey, we have all this great canon between, you know, games and books and whatnot,
The
but we have this
expanded Halo
universe.
universe.
Yeah, we have this universe where we can tell some other stories, right? Being the Halo fan that I am, I'm looking forward to it. It was oddly reminiscent to me of Nightfall, which was one of their. I want to say Nightfall was the good one of their live action ones that they came out with previously, and I enjoyed it pretty much as long as it was the one. Yeah, Nightfall I think was the one at the Academy. But yeah, I agree kind of with the consensus on the Cortana thing. Like, it's an odd creative decision that you're going to keep the voice actor from the games, but then you're going to create a different appearance than what people are used to in the games. And mind you, they're probably trying to appeal to a more casual audience that maybe doesn't have as much, you know, influence or involvement or experience with Halo as we do. But yeah, I mean, personally, I almost would have liked for them to get The Rock, to your illusion that he's too small, because yeah, when you're talking Master Chief, we're talking somebody that's like, I think it was somewhere in the range of like 400 pounds and like 8 feet tall.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, even The Rock is not that tall. Yeah, it would be
Yeah,
hard to find anybody who's going to be that tall, unless if they're doing some kind of, you know, limb extension prosthetic thing or whatever, some kind of rig for them to wear, and or just, you know, doing some CGI stuff or whatever. So I understand the challenges and the limitations, you know, with both there. So I understand that you're not necessarily going to get the 8 foot or whatever tall Master Chief.
at
It's
least
just
maybe somebody that looks a little more formidable in the armor.
no.
Mark, where's Halo sitting with you? Are you going to get a subscription to Paramount Plus to go ahead and watch this thing?
Well, fun fact, I currently am a subscriber. So yes, I will be watching it.
So yes, sure.
I originally got it back when 1883. I don't know if you guys follow like Yellowstone and stuff like that. So I got it when that came out. So it's pretty cheap. I think it was like $5 a month or something. So yeah, I will be watching that on the 24th, I think. Is that when it comes out?
Did they actually announce a
March
release date? I don't
24th.
remember seeing that.
I think it was
Oh,
March
is it
24th.
as soon as next
Oh
month?
wow.
Okay.
It's for his birthday.
Yeah, a couple days
Yeah.
after.
There you go.
Perfect. As far as, you know, actor, I don't know about The Rock, but maybe they could have just stuck Kevin Hart in there with some stilts or something. But yeah.
Hey,
No, but,
Cortana, I
I
need you now.
mean, yeah.
yeah, just curious to see what the kind of story they got going on, and I mean, it's sad they had to do Cortana like that, but I mean, there's probably other things we're going to be complaining about afterwards. So
Yeah, sure. And then so rounding out our again online visual content discussion, insofar as this announcement that Netflix is going to have a Bioshock movie adaptation. So it's I don't know how I sit with this one. So you're coming to Netflix, but it's going to be a movie. Um, I don't know where I sit with this one. It's a little bit frustrating to me. I think I would personally rather see, um, them not even do Bioshock altogether, because I just don't. I'm going to give credit where it's due and kind of sit back and wait to see what happens, because I'm sure just like, half of the country, if not more than half of the country, uh, people have a subscription to Netflix, so they're going to see what this creative vision is. But like, Mark, I can't recall how much of the Bioshock games you played or how much you dug into it. Like, is this something that's going to interest you at all, or do you feel like
Um,
Bioshock is a weird decision to bring in film format?
it's a very odd choice to bring to screen. Well, I shouldn't say screen, but movie. I could see maybe more the lines of a series to like trying to get as much backstory and the plot in there as possible. I'm not sure how far back they're gonna go as far as the story's concerned, but I don't know.
Okay, Matt, I know of the three of us, you and I are probably the deeper Bioshock fans, if you will. And you being one that apparently telegraphed the ending of Bioshock Infinite towards the beginning of the game. What do you think about them coming out with a Bioshock film? Because mind you, I don't think they've stipulated which game, if anything, it would be based off. I think this is more just based off the overall concept of Bioshock, right? So,
Well,
is it
and
enticing?
yeah, and so like that would have been my question because yeah, I haven't seen anything where they've actually said anything beyond that it's going to be a Bioshock, franchise related project. So yeah, if it's just going to be essentially the story of the first game condensed and put into a film, I, I'll definitely still check it out. I mean, I love that game, great game. But yeah, I something about it. I can definitely understand like the inclination to try, but something about the narrative and the purpose of that game, um, it's it's sort of a little more meaningful and impactful when you are the one who is actually progressing through the story and taking all the actions and everything. To watch as kind of a passive observer, still a cool story, but wouldn't carry nearly the same weight, I don't think. So yeah, I don't know. That would seem like an odd choice for me. Um, but then with them doing a movie, yeah, I wonder what it would actually be. I think I would be more interested, like Mark was saying, why not do a series? Like, what I think would be cool would be, yeah, if they were going to do a series and it was maybe going to be about Rapture, but like more about like maybe its inception or then like leading to its fall or whatever. It could basically be the big prequel or preamble leading up to essentially where you come in Bioshock 1. um that could be cool.
Yeah, kind
Hit
of
me up,
like the
Netflix.
Andrew Ryan
uh
before story.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I kind of agree with both of you guys. I almost wish that had announced this in the form of like a longer running series and something that you could go ahead and kind of explore that universe. Because I definitely think, I know that games have been out for quite some time now, but to avoid spoilers, when you see that Rapture is just kind of one piece of the puzzle, I definitely would like to see them explore a little bit more of the characters and the world and the lore surrounding, you know, all of that universe. However, I will say if they can make a movie that is at least halfway as enticing, if not more enticing than Guillermo del Toro's The Shape of Water. If you guys have seen that one, I saw that and I had Bioshock vibes all over. I don't know why, it just kind of felt that way. And there's another one that came out on Netflix. Wifey and I watched some time ago. I can't remember for the life of me, but kind of it was odd in the sense that it had that ode to Bioshock, but there was also still some stuff going on with like memory cognizance and not not choose your own adventure, if you will, but it definitely kind of tapped into what you were saying, Matt, about like that more visceral experience of like, oh, I'm there experiencing it with that character. For the life of me, I can't remember that title, unfortunately. But anyway, we'll see. I think we'll definitely all kind of keep our ears to the ground on that one and see what comes of it, though. And hopefully, they won't drag that through the mud like we've seen with some film adaptations of games in the past. So that being said, that kind of rounds out all of our talking points, if you will, talking points proper. We're going to go ahead and take another quick break, and we'll be back to wrap up the show with some of our thoughts on some other interesting developments and stuff that has come out in the gaming sphere in the past week. So we'll be back once again right after this.
Heard something you liked? Maybe you want to showcase a great gaming experience? Or perhaps you just want to share a laugh with the crew. Join the Discord by using the link in the show notes. We look forward to you being part of the community.
All right, gamers, welcome back. So we pretty much wrapped up all of our big talking points. We do, however, have two other things that came out, and we wanted to tie those in with kind of what we've been playing. So first and foremost, if you caught it earlier this month, Dying Light 2 Stay Human came out on February 4th. The game that was all a buzz on social media because the developers teasing that it takes 500 hours to do complete playthroughs, that being multiple playthroughs with all the different character interactions and whatnot. And of the three of us, Matt's had at least the most experience, albeit not much, but the most experience in playing that one. And then also, much to everybody's surprise, earlier this week, Cyberpunk 2077 came out with its next gen or new gen patches, however you want to call it that, for the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series consoles. And of the three of us, I've kind of had the most experience with that, I would say. But we're going to roll that kind of into what we've been playing, what we've been doing, and we'll round out the show. So we'll go ahead and start off with Matt. Matt, why don't you tell us about Dying Light 2 and your experience, your thoughts on that, what else you've been playing, and what you want to leave the show with.
Yeah, right on. Dying Light 2 and then Cyberpunk have been my more recent, adventures. I did play just a little bit of Dying Light 2. Haven't really gotten very far in, but my initial impressions are that I don't know. Visually, I think it looks okay. It's not like anything like what was maybe going to be, presented back in the announcement, or the reveal, or whatever, when they're discussing it. But I mean, I wasn't really expecting that. So I think it looks okay. It seems to run okay for the most part. But they've made some changes with control layouts and some other various kind of mechanics of the game. I can't say I'm necessarily thrilled by all of them. There's some funny animations as well, and then like movement feels just much less weighted. You're kind of floaty and everything. I don't know. It was not maybe a great first hour or however much I played for. Did get past a little bit of kind of an intro and some beginning combat and stuff, and then I was making my way. Had to like hop around some cliff ledges trying to get up a cliffside, and got to like a kind of a break point or whatever, and was coming up on my next jump, and all of a sudden the screen just like started getting all pixelated and everything just turned black, like all the textures turned black. I guess I had some kind of memory leak or something. I don't know. But so I just sort of laughed. It had done a quick save like right before that happened, so I was like, okay, well, that was a good enough, I guess, first run for that game. So we'll get back to it, hoping that it'll be just something we're running around in, having a good time once we unlock co-op on it. But much less rough now. Cyberpunk did have their update. Booted that up. Haven't been able to really get a whole lot of time into that, so I can't really speak on any of the actual like gameplay changes or quality of life stuff or whatever. But whew, boy, it does look pretty now. Like playing previously on like Xbox One code, like oh man, it was Stutter City, and you could see the artistic intention that was there, but it was pretty muddy. But now, man, whew, yeah, it certainly looks real pretty. Driving still a little less realistic, I guess, in the physics than I'd prefer, but whatever. And then last but least, I've been trying to get a little bit back into the Slay the Spire there. You
What?
got you got me
Got
hooked.
him.
I friggin' died though, so now that sucks. So I gotta start the next run. But yeah,
Get used to that.
that game's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Excellent. That's always good to hear when my recommendations get taken by folks.
That's right.
All
So everybody
right.
get out there and check that game out.
Yeah, we're not. We need to start getting sponsored by Slay the Spire. Really. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to G3, the Slay the Spire podcast. Anyway,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Cool. So, Mark, shameless plug. Where can we find you? What you've been playing? What you've been doing? And do you have anything on either Dying Light 2 or Cyberpunk 2077, or just anything else you've been playing that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I've been playing some Inscription still. Actually figured out some things on that, so I was able to progress a little bit. The story's kind of unfolding, which is nice, rewarding as well. I've been playing this Scorex game. It's like a racing or drift racing simulator type game on Xbox. Having a little fun on that. It's got a very welcoming like online community. It's cross platform, crossplay, whatever you want to call it. So that's cool. I haven't been playing too much shells. Got Dying Light 2 maybe an hour or so in. Not much that I mean I would like to play a little more, but from what I can see, pretty game. Did run into one bug. One of like the zombies was like stuck under a building and I couldn't get to him, so I had to like save and reload. But I mean that shit's gonna happen. So Cyberpunk, I haven't dove back into that yet since the update. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right, cool. And so again, you're truly known as Ice on all things gaming, social media. I went ahead and I forfeited the time I could have played in Dying Light 2 to play more Cyberpunk 2077. So yeah, insofar as the patch update, the 1.5 patch update, 1.5 is it 5? Yeah, 1.5.
Yeah.
They went ahead. They've done quite a few things. Basically, patched the code for the. I don't even like saying next gen because we're in the gen, right? So we'll just say the new gen consoles. But I concur with
they ought to label it the proper gen release.
Yeah, quite frankly, they probably
Yeah.
should. So I got a couple hours of play in there, finished some of the initial main missions and everything, and yeah, I concur. Damn, it looks as it probably should have on those consoles at launch. That being said, this may sound blasphemous. I would say it's more akin to my playthroughs on PC. Not necessarily saying that it's as good as playing through it on PC, but it's much more fluid with the combat and weapon wheels and all that stuff as one would expect. It's not as janky. The graphics and the ray tracing type stuff look a whole lot better. I will say there is still some jank in there, like one of the very first missions where you interact with Dexter Deshawn and you get out of the limo and his limo starts driving off. And I'm looking at it and my wife's looking at it. She's like, what's wrong with that car? And the wheels are just literally left, right. And this guy's just like trying to, drive away and it looks garbage. But that's, I guess, to be expected with patching. You're never going to catch everything, right? So Cyberpunk, yep. Outside of that, I don't remember if I said it, if this happened on when we aired the last podcast or not, but went ahead and finished Sackboy: A Big Adventure on PlayStation 5. So that was kind of fun getting to play through that with wifey, and I was highly surprised. I feel like I did mention this before. There's you finish the campaign, and then there's kind of a after party to the campaign, if you will. But you got to have the right tickets to get into the after party. So don't want to spoil too much there.
Exclusionary.
Yeah. elite, if you will.
Yeah.
But I found it very interesting because my wife is not usually a completionist. She doesn't really have that in her. That being said, she was like, okay, so we're ready to go play some more. And I was like, okay. So we went right back in and we've been kind of redoing levels to try to maximize that, whether that be death-free runs or, for scoring or whatnot. So so more Marvel Spider-Man, again, Sackboy Big Adventure, and Cyberpunk 2077. That's pretty much what I've been working on aside from, the personal stuff. Hopefully, by the end of this weekend, we'll have a major project, if you will, associated with the podcast that will finally see the light of day, if all things willing. And that being said, that pretty much wraps up the show. So last round, Mark, you got anything?
No, thanks everyone for tuning in. I'll catch you next time.
Matt?
No, yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody. Get out there and enjoy your games.
Yeah, most definitely. I second that one. So, folks, remember, this is G3 Podcast, gaming's greatest generation. You can feel free to catch us on all your favorite audio streaming platforms, as well as here on YouTube. Bam! Hit us with that big old like. Subscribe to the channel if you like what we talk about, if you want to hear some more about it. And other than that, just remember, gaming's greatest generation is the one you guys are a part of.
Thanks for listening to the Gaming's Greatest Generation podcast. We hope you enjoyed your time with us today. If you have any feedback for the show or would like to contribute ideas, feel free to call 702-690-9292 or email us at gamingsgreatestgeneration@gmail.com. You can also join the Discord community by following the link in the show notes. See you next time.